Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to the Council on Future Conflicts. My name is Scott, the proprietor of the Future Conflicts channel. Today we've got episode 522. We're talking Russian revenge and terror in America. God, Joe, I wish this literally wasn't the. I feel like for the last almost 4 shows we've talked about terror in America, right? The problem is there continues to be more terror in America.
Right? It's crazy.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I appreciate you guys for being here. Chat, you're looking beautiful as always. Joe Watcher, of course. Joe's on the bottom there because StreamYards is acting up on us, and because Watcher's a mod on StreamYards, it pops him up. So if that gives you some sort of the tism, it starts tickling your tism. I can't help you with it.
I'm right where I'm right where I'm in good shape.
Just know that it's also doing it for me. It's it bothers. It rankles.
I know you're the autistic of the three of us. So I mean,
anyway, Chad. StreamYards has launched a rebellion, but we're doing okay.
In fairness, I think this is probably going to be one of those one-day things, and they'll fix it, and it'll be back to normal on Friday. So,
you mean like how all of a sudden it started making it feedback every time we were sharing audio? That got fixed real quick.
I don't know. Watch it. That only happens when you share audio.
That's fair, and only after certain friends got taken by the FBI.
All right. Let's see. Here we go. Joe, how you doing today, brother?
I'm all right. I'm doing pretty good. Not a bad day, but the day is young. Although I spent the whole day yesterday working outside with a sawmill and chainsaws, and that's always good for the soul. So good times.
Well, I was reflecting the other day on. I wonder if what it's going to happen when. What did you call it? Ursus retardicus.
Ursus retardicus.
Yes. Ursus retardicus. That's right. Ursus retardicus. What's going to happen when that meets Canis retardicus?
I know, right?
Has your big dog seen the black bear yet?
I think he wants to fight, and it's going to be crazy. But we'll get there. Ironically, my bear deterrent traps are working perfectly because I set them up, and the bear hasn't come back. So I was kind of hoping to hear the shotgun blanks go off and scare the bear away. And I've got a camera pointed at it, so it would be epic video. But he still has not.
In fairness, I would have some trepidation until I knew for a fact it was a bear that set that off. There is that 1 in a million chance that some dumb hobo off the freeway comes up and decides to go through your garbage, and gets what he deserves, I guess, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Well, anyway, so good to hear. Watcher, how you doing?
Doing good. Working on a lot of very interesting projects. I'll say that. I think we might be honing in on a name, and for those of you out there who are interested, the kids came up with that the guess what thing. I think we're just going to do that as a t-shirt line. I think you people will like that. Guess what? Chicken butt. Yeah, it'll be good.
Watcher, I did you see that we had a delay from our printer again?
Yes, for the same issue.
We
literally just talked to them about.
I know. Anyway, I don't want to go too far down that. But the good news is the efforts to print Doorkickers continues, chat. So we will endeavor to nail that one down. But anyway, do you get those?
No, they go right to your they go right to your inbox.
All right, I just want to.
I got it when you forward it to me, though. I'm saying that I thought I talked to them about it. So, and it happens to be the same issue that they already talked to us about last time, and we already.
I know you'd think they'd catch it all the first time, but evidently that is not the case. Shocking, I think.
Hey, I want to mention a point. Since Wrench Turner 42 is being very vocal in the chat, I want to point out that that man has done some pretty fantastic things for Camp Ponderosa. Everyone enjoyed the TV that magically appeared here. I know you don't want kudos, but I'm giving to you anyway. And the pads that you picked up for me and brought to me were fantastic. And we're going to be taking a lot of that first aid equipment that you dropped off, and we're going to be making first aid kits for some kids at an outdoor event that I'll be speaking at this month. So every kid who comes is going to get some of the fishing poles that we have upstairs at here at Camp Ponderosa. Those of you who've been here know about the fishing poles upstairs.
Oh, man.
We have about 1.5 million. We're going to give each kid a tackle box and a fishing pole and a first aid kit. So it's going to be pretty neat.
I feel terrible, Joe. I just realized something. I need to absolutely set it up so that at least, like, if I can't get it worked out this year, then at least next year, I need to like raise chickens specifically for the food pantry. That needs to happen. I just need to get a processor in line for that.
Right on.
I love how Joe. I'm looking at the YouTube chat. Joe, you're consistently the #1 chatter in there. Followed up by your Arctic Boy, and then Wrench Turner is #3. Congrats on the #3 status there, Wrench Turner. And you can't just say LOL, LOL constantly and over in the chat and continue.
By the way, Wrench Turner, after I told her about it, Mrs. Tactical Wisdom is eagerly awaiting the potato delivery you mentioned. So,
oh yeah, I'll be late fall, I think.
If there's one thing Wrench Turner 42 has an excess of, it's potatoes.
Taters. All right. Anything else before we jump into the program?
Let's dive into the good times in America.
Before we do, if you want to support the channel, the 2 easy ways to do it: memberships either on Rumble or YouTube, and that's just $5 a month, or a super chat. And if you do a $10 or higher super chat, I shut the hell up and give you the stage and address your chat. If it's less than that, we'll get to it when we can. I always read super chats unless I'm too stupid to see them. And sometimes that has proven to be the case. So yeah, if you want to support us, that's the best way to do it. Oh, and you can gift memberships as well. Our good buddy Hunch the Dirty Roofer is the OG goat for that. He's definitely owns that. All right, let's jump in. Where were we starting off with first? Yeah, Joe, I thought this was crazy. I mean, not surprising, but definitely. What surprises me is this doesn't happen like more frequently. The sad thing is that the fact that this is news means it's clearly happening, on a regular basis, and they know what this shit is.
Yeah, what surprises me is 55 tons is rookie numbers. You got to up those numbers.
55 tons of meth ingredient from China bound for Mexican drug cartel seized in California. I wonder if they break it into smaller, like numbers of smaller shipments, so that if they seize one, then they still got like 5 more through or something. Like it's like a regression analysis kind of thing.
That'd be the capitalist way. The communist way is 155-ton shipment. So
that's true.
If
you buy 55 tons of meth, we will send you 55 tons of meth.
Weird question here. Why is this coming through Long Beach if it's for the cartels? China owns and operates 2 Mexican ports.
Well, let's read the story and see if it'll open our eyes to this. Authorities at the port of Long Beach on Friday.
Yeah.
What's that, Joe?
Just because it's the busiest port on the West Coast.
You can.
Destination. Yeah.
Well, the irony is it probably hits Port of Long Beach, goes in, and then goes down the coast to Mexico. Anyway, the shipment originated in China was destined for the Sinaloa drug cartel in Mexico, according to news release from the U.S. Immigration and Customs and U.S. Customs and Border Protection. The dichrome peroxide was identified as a dicumyl. I don't know how to say that. Dicumyl peroxide was identified as a result of an initiative launched by ICE in 2019 to identify suspicious shipments of chemical precursors from China, India, and other countries that are destined for drug cartels in Mexico. Since the initiative was launched, it has led to the interdiction of almost 1,900 tons of chemicals. Well, that's good. That means that this is not the first time. It's just the first time we're hearing about it. Used to manufacture methamphetamines and fentanyl. In March, it led to the seizure of about 44 tons of glacial acetic acid at Port Houston, which was also destined for the Sinaloa cartel. The initiative provides Homeland Security with a game-changing method to stay one step ahead of cartels by disrupting the flow of chemicals that they depend on to produce illicit narcotics. Joe, what's your kind of take on this? I mean, I feel like this is probably something that is probably an actual success. 1,900 tons is not nothing. It's not much because clearly a lot more is getting through. But
I think that it's because we just started looking for it that we found it right away. I imagine if we did more looking for it, we'd find a lot more of it. So
yeah. Well, when you're focusing on domestic violent extremists, it's kind of like this falls through the cracks, huh?
I'll also give you another one to watch for, which is second order effects of this. If we do start to be really successful at shutting down the cartels from getting the precursors, you're going to see two big things happen very quickly, in my opinion. A, you're going to see grocery stores being unable to keep any sort of cough and or cold treatment on shelf, whether it has the precursor in it that they're looking for or not. And B, you're going to start seeing just an absolute ton of meth head crash outs.
Just a little more about this.
Something that has really been bragging on me for a little bit, that I don't get nearly enough credit for the outstanding rhymes that I put on the posts about our show.
Well, what was today's? I gotta find it. Hold on.
Let's see. I gotta.
I wasn't browsing. Here we go.
Put it up. Let's share it for all to see.
Let's see. What do we got here?
Want
to learn about what was found in Long Beach? Come and listen as we teach. Don't like my rhyme? Then get here on time. Very well. You're a poet and you didn't even know it.
I literally walk around the house and rhyme all my sentences for like 2 hours until things get thrown at me and I'm told to stop.
A little more about this program. So this is referred to as Operation Chokehold. It's a collaborative effort by ICE, HSI, which is that's the Homeland Security Investigations section of ICE, U.S. Customs, CBP, and other agencies. It focuses on disrupting the supply chain of precursor materials. Objective: identify and interdicting shipments of chemical precursors destined for drug cartels, primarily in Mexico. Methodology uses advanced inspection techniques such as non-intrusive inspection system. You know, Joe, this sounds like it may be using some of all that super duper X-ray stuff that they invested on, or the MRIs. Remember, didn't they do like some sort of like an MRI tech or whatever for looking for like nuclear weapons and things like that coming through containers?
You're looking for
maybe they're using some of that for other.
This was probably found with the millimeter wave radar like they use at the airport. A lot more detailed imaging, better view.
Let's see. It confirms 1,900 tons. It's the methamphetamine precursors are the largest majority. Fentanyl precursors are smaller, but growing portion includes chemicals used to synthesize fentanyl, reflecting on the shift in cartel activities towards opioids. And then, it mentions the glacial acid that they got in March of this year. So a lot of big, So China's role, right? This is the kind of the question. How does something happen come out of China? How does this much stuff come out of China? Now, let's be honest. China ships a lot. There are cracks to be had. That be, any kind of totalitarian state fosters corruption. That being said, if you think China doesn't know that this is happening,
Well,
I mean, this is part of the Chinese plan.
When you consider that 2 Chinese agents were just arrested at University of Michigan, where our youngest goes to school, were just caught bringing in agricultural poison. Here they're bringing in human poison. And we continue to see COVID, yet another human poison, getting spread around. It doesn't surprise me at all. China's been waging a long-term chemical war against the U.S., and they're just going to continue to do so. By the way, this 55 tons, is that a metric F-ton or a standard F-ton? The line is fine.
I think whatever the non-metric version is, it's a statute.
On that note, I want everyone to stop calling it a 10 millimeter pistol. It is now a 1 centimeter.
There you go. Real quick, Wrench Turner says, and watch your noise, AO. It's been hot for drug running for years. Don't mean to countermand you here, boss, but I will say that is just a side effect of living along the 15. Basically, the entire 15 is a drug running corridor.
Hey, while we're on the topic of life in the Pacific Northwest, I shared a story last night about a man who got visitation of his 3 children, and then they were found dead. It bears a striking responsibility to something that I had to experience the other week, and I didn't talk about it when it happened. I talked to you 2 about it, but I didn't talk to anyone else. But it was a horrible murder-suicide in Kalispell, in which a man killed his wife and 2 children and himself. And through an odd chain of events, Al and Linda, the great folks who run this camp, actually know the father of the man who did this, and they were going to help him clean out the house themselves. I'm like, all 3 of you are like in your 80s. Let me help. And I'm just going to say that the satanic influences in the house, including a satanic church membership, satanic temple membership thing, was crazy. Evil is real, folks, and it is out there, and it's doing bad things. And if you hurt the little ones, I have zero sympathy for you, but I just felt that sense of overwhelming evil in that house. It was crazy. Can't explain it, but it's out there, and you need to be paying attention. These crazy people are getting worse. So,
that's a really good point. I mean, Joe, evil's out there. Sometimes it's organization, sometimes it's people, sometimes it's ideas. There are evil ideas that are out there. This is the reason why, things like communism, it's like you don't study dangerous biological stuff unless you're in a heavy suit and all this kind of stuff. And
militant roots. Sorry, that's the wrong one.
Are you interrupting me for a reason, or
no?
Did I say something wrong? Okay. No, I mean, when you study that stuff, you take precautions, right? And it's the same thing needs to be done with things like communism, if I'm honest. Especially the more virulent kind in America, neo-Marxism. It's not that you can't talk about it or study it or this kind of stuff. You just have to understand what the hell it is. I mean, it is evil. It is a mental virus, and it spreads mimetically through, power to the people. That's a meme that helps spread communism, right? Down with the oppressors. That's another meme, this is a meme, right? These are all like viral contagions. And the good news is our audience is pretty, inoculated against it. But the problem is most regular Americans aren't. So we have to be really careful about this. And Satanism is another great example of that.
When we all got there and I stepped into that house, I just felt the feeling. I stopped everyone and said a quick prayer of protection. And at the end of the day, I burned a lot of the things that we found in there just because it doesn't need to exist. So crazy.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, let's move to the next topic, shall we? The bromance had to end sometime, Joe. Evidently, rockets fired on Israel from Syria for the first time in a year. IDF hits back. So, last week we covered how they're talking. It's like which made sense if you have two historically hostile people and you're not shooting at each other. You engage at the local level in order to kind of continue to not shoot at each other. Well, evidently that didn't work. Rockets were fired from Syria at Israel on Tuesday for the first time in a year, according to Israeli military. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't think these are probably, it's not like Al-Jilani said, go and shoot rockets. When you've got, HTI terrorists building it a big part of your military, they probably just said, hey, let's shoot some rockets at Israel. I'd love to kill some Israelis today. A group that calls itself the Martyr Mohammed Deif Brigade says it's fired 2 Soviet-made Grad rockets at Syria's occupied Golan Heights. Al Jazeera reports of an obscure or unknown militant group. The rockets landed in open fields of the occupied. So not only did they not shoot many rockets, but they were incompetently aimed. And no damage or casualties were reported, but Israel is quick to say that it will respond militarily to the attempted attack, which is exactly what they should do. You've got to motivate the Al-Qaeda government in Syria to police its shit up. And basically, we're going to smack you down every time you allow something like this to happen.
And I'll tell you, this entirely illustrates the problem that Al-Qaeda has in trying to run Syria. They control 1/4 of the territory. The rest of it is controlled by various militias and groups who are going to do things that other parts of the world are going to hold the government responsible for. So that's exactly what happened here. Everyone knows it wasn't the Syrian government, but they have a responsibility, if they're going to claim to be that, to actually do something about it. And I think it's just Golan living up to its heights. Golan in the local dialect means surrounded. So interesting.
I can continue on here. There's a little more. Defense Minister Israel Katz said that Israel views Syrian leader Ahmed al-Shara, or Jilani as we like to call him, as is directly responsible for every threat and rocket fire towards the state of Israel, and the full response will come soon. This is exactly how you make them, essentially make them do their job, is hold them responsible. The group's name and logo is in reference to a slain Hamas commander, which is why Kott's statement said he won't allow for a return to October 7th. We are a generation born under bombs and raised in the sound of rifles that will not accept living in humiliation, Kott said. The Israeli military indicated a recently attacked southern Syria with artillery fire in the wake of rocket launches from Syria as part of their initial response. But a representative from the Syrian militant group declared that our operations will not stop until the bombing of oppressed people in Gaza stops. Some Marxist language there, Joe, the use of the word oppression, like that, oppressed peoples. This is a reminder that there is a deep communist kind of root to a lot of what's going on in the Middle East. Back in the Soviet era, the PLO was heavily Marxist back in the day. The Kurds are nominally Marxists, mostly they just are, well, let's be honest, they're just Kurds for the most part. They would follow anybody who led them and gave them a gun, but it just happens to be the Marxists. Let's see. Israel already bombed Syria hundreds of times in the wake of al-Assad's December 8th ouster, ostensibly to ensure there's no advanced hardware left over from the Syrian Arab army. As for Syria's al-Jilani, he's interestingly just days ago signaled he's ready to make peace with Israel. We have common enemies. Cooperation is possible, he said of the matter. Yeah, I just, the grift plot arc on this guy is just really funny. I'm curious if I'm curious if this is the real arc for this guy, or if he's got some 4D chess kind of like, I'm trying to create the Al Qaeda super state here in Syria, and I got to get on my knees for all the the Arab states and the West in order to get the money to then become the big bad. But I want to be clear. Let's see. Yeah, this is Jelani saying, I want to be clear, the era of endless mutual bombings must come to an end. No country can thrive when its skies are filled with fear. The reality is that we have common enemies and we can play a major role in regional security. God help us when an al-Qaeda-led Syria plays a major role in regional security. Of course, Israel has been bombing for weeks prior to this. Syria for decades has been the most feared Russian-supplied anti-air defense. But Syria's current status is that its skies are completely undefended and at the mercy of Israel, the Pentagon, and Turkey. That is an accurate statement. Joe?
Yeah, I think you're right. He's on a Middle East humiliation tour to try and get more support for what he's going to do. And a lot of those states that are most supportive of him are those who are supportive of Al Qaeda. And I think that's going to happen. But one of the things he does have to do is rein in all of the militias that are running the countryside. I wish him luck with that because nobody else could do it. If Bashar al-Assad couldn't do it, I doubt al-Jilani is going to have any more luck.
Well, if ever there was an appropriate kind of retirement gig for a terrorist, it would be going after other terrorists.
Right.
Better him fighting them in Syria than us fighting them somewhere else. So, yeah, I wish him well. It's kind of like a Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times, Al-Jilani. All right. Okay. Anything else on that, gents?
No.
And if we didn't have enough places to start wars, Iran has basically said, me. Don't forget about us. We want to start a war too. Iran's committee dismisses U.S. nuclear proposal, vows to keep enriching uranium. This is basically giving us kind of going to Israel, say, hey, buddy, we tried. If you want to go and drop bombs on Iran now and knock yourself out. Iran Supreme Leader said on Wednesday that abandoning uranium enrichment was 100% against the country's interests, rejecting a central U.S. demand in talks to resolve a decades-long dispute over Tehran's nuclear ambitions. The U.S. proposal for a new nuclear deal was presented to Iran on Saturday by Oman, which has mediated talks between Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas and President Donald Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff. The 5 rounds of talk, several hard-to-bridge issues remain, including Iran's insistence on maintaining uranium enrichment on its soil and Tehran's refusal to ship abroad its entire existing stockpile of highly enriched uranium. Because they want to build a bomb. I mean, essentially, they want to take what they've got now, build a bomb, and then, fait accompli that, and then start enriching again. Uranium enrichment is the key to our nuclear program. Well, yes, we know this is your nuclear weapons program. We know this. And the enemies have focused on the enrichment. Comedy said during a television speech marking the anniversary of the death. Yeah, Joe, I mean, this is absurd. I mean, the only reason they need this is for weapons. I mean, they can get nuclear power almost probably for free from the U.S. and from Saudi Arabia and countries like that, but they just wouldn't be able to get, reactors that would allow them to make weaponized uranium plutonium. To me, this is them saying, please bomb me.
It is saying, hey, here's a big, shiny, bright target. Please come and get it.
If I take the Israeli side, right, and I put myself in the head of Israelis, the Israelis are basically saying, okay, we've gotten most of the trigger pullers from October 7th, but we still haven't got the planners, and we still haven't got the money men and the trainers and the supporters, right? That's all in Iran. And so their October 7th extinction, terrorist extinction arc continues, and the final destination is in Iran. The problem is that America wants to, avoid, if possible, Israel essentially completely dominating Iran and starting a war potentially. I mean, who knows what would happen? And so this is why I think the Trump administration tried to do this weapons deal. But if they're going to refuse it, then I guess we're looking at probably war. I mean, Watcher, you got thoughts on this?
I've been just the same thought I've had for a long time. I'm glad we're no longer in talks to make peace with a nation that it's very clear we can't make peace with. It was really funny because there for a long time Trump was talking about trying to come to a new nuclear deal with Tehran, and I don't there is no deal that can be reached. They don't want nukes unless they can have nuclear weapons. We don't want them to have nuclear weapons. So
yeah. Well, the other side of it too is that like I think instability that comes from destroying a regime. I mean, we saw what happens with Libya fall when Muammar Gaddafi fell in Libya. We saw what happens, in Syria when that goes high and right. The same fucking thing's going to happen in Iran. It's going to be 5 different factions all wanting to a piece of the pie, and it's going to be 7-8 years of internal civil war. They're going to pull the Afghans in. They're going to pull in, the Palestine. I mean, the Shia militias in Iraq. I mean, it's going to be a fucking nightmare.
Well, and remember, the other very peculiar thing about the country we're discussing here is that unlike just about anywhere else, there is no possibility for any of them to be on our side of the fence once it collapses. Almost everybody there is going to remember the Shah, and nobody in living memory is going to want to be associated with anything to do with U.S. leadership after that. So basically what you're going to see is that all of those factions scrabbling in the collapse will be scrabbling to see who can be branded as the most anti-U.S.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the sad thing is there's plenty of people in Iran that don't want this to happen. The problem is they're just not in charge.
Yeah.
And Joe, you got any other thoughts on this?
No, I think that I agreed with what was just said, and same deal.
Yeah, it's a fucking mess, is what it is. I mean, let's be honest. Almost everything.
Yeah.
Joe, the sad thing is this kind of like helps crystallize the problem, like in America, right? It's not that we want bad things to happen, but enough people that want bad things to happen are able to make bad things happen, whether it's in Iran or whether it's in, in and around Israel, or whether it's in Europe, or whether it's in Africa, or whether it's in South America or Asia, specifically China. It's like this is happening all over the world. The Americans can only do so much, right? And then, oh, by the way, while we're doing all this stuff in so many different countries, we're losing the plot at home. Mr. I hates the Constitution, in America, in both singles and groups, are spiraling our country into the toilet. And let's be honest, Joe, I mean, we're going to be lucky if we can maintain local security when it comes, further down. If you keep, unwinding this problem the way it's going. And, this is why I'll be honest with you. I think what you're doing with tactical wisdom and and the training courses and the books, I think it's more important than ever. You want to kind of hit on that a little bit. And I mean, like, just because Trump's in office doesn't mean we're all safe now.
And you know what? Actually, I saw Joel Gaines, War Lizard Tactical, who will be teaching a class at Camp Ponderosa next year. I mentioned this yesterday, that all around the country, training attendance is down. Kay and I talked about this. Matt and I have talked about this, because everyone thinks, hey, Trump won, everything is fine. Things are actually getting worse. The violence level is increasing. There may not be as many incidents, but they're far more violent. I mean, when was the last time we had somebody walking around with a homemade flamethrower trying to light people on fire, right? It's been a minute. So we've got a lot of crazy stuff going on. And we need to actually get out and train. And more important than just getting out and coming and training is the people you meet at it and the networks you create while you're here at the training, getting to know each other. We really need you to get out and do that and get to meet each other and get ready, because when the time comes for you to use these skills, you're not going to have a chance. There will be no training spin up. You've got to be ready right now. And I think that it doesn't have to be me. It doesn't have to be Matt. Just get out and train with somebody and get out there. And CW Aspie asked, wasn't there an IED found in New England last week? No, it was in North Carolina in the Blue Ridge Parkway. Yeah. And when we're seeing that, things are getting worse, not better. Get out and train. Absolutely.
I mean, Joe, the sad thing is one of the things you're probably going to end up having to add to your courses is like IED identification. We're going to have to start going back to immediately. We're going to have to go back to a lot of these skills that we learned during, the GWAT, era. Like, we used to do a lot of IED training in Iraq. And, subtle things, overt things, IEDs are not going to be super sophisticated at first if a determined group starts using them. So, this is going to be stuff that you can train to find and to increase your security. I know, because I lived it in Iraq back in the 2000s.
This is one of those dark comedy laugh at things, but do you have any idea how many dudes with PTSD that just got over checking the right and left hand shoulder are going to be just completely fucked in the head?
You guys know that this was in Iraq when I was doing this, but I never did this in the States because I never brought a whole lot of my PTSD or whatever. I never had PTSD, but I didn't bring a lot of it home with me. But I don't know how many times in Iraq we'd go past something and I'd just be like, I just kind of wince and turn away from the door, like, all right, the armor of the door hopefully will take it if it goes off. And one time when I did that, we actually took it was a near miss, but it was I was literally untensing and then it went off and I was just like, oh.
No. The pucker factor.
I know. It's a fucking real thing, man. Yeah. So I'll share with you guys my only kind of call over to any kind of PTSD, right? And this is not even real. It's just a dream, right? But I had the dream 2 different times over like about a 2-month period. After, this was within the 3 or 4 months after coming back from Iraq. And so I was in Iraq in Al Anbar province, which was like absolutely the fucking craziest place that nobody talked about at the time because everybody was focusing on Baghdad and all this kind of stuff. But like the stuff we saw between Ramadi, Fallujah, on Route Michigan and around Lake Habaniya and all this kind of stuff was I'd put it up against anything I saw anywhere else in the entire country. But anyway, the point is like, so I get back home And I had a dream, right? And my dream, I was back in Kentucky. And so I lived in Louisville, Kentucky, and I went to Murray State, which is on the western part of the country. And there's this really kind of desolate 4-lane interstate highway that connects I-65, like at Elizabethtown, down, and it heads towards Paducah. And it's called the Western Kentucky Parkway. And so it was just one of those roads that was never very busy, you know? And so, like, I had a dream that I was with, like, 4 or 5 of my friends, and we were in 2 cars, right? And which is kind of weird because I never ever did anything like this. And we stopped on the side of the road so somebody could zip into the bushes. You know, on one side of the road there's some bushes, but then there's like a bunch of open space. But you know, there's dead space, you know, in the distance, and it was a real place that I was dreaming about. It's not some kind of made up place. And so, like, I'm like, start going, hey guys. Let's go. We've been sitting here too long. You know, I was like getting in my whole kind of like, you can't stay on the side of the road drill too long. You can't stay in one place unless you've got security or whatever. And I started just getting this anxiety for like, let's get on the fucking road and get moving again. Because, you know, in Iraq, a lot of times, you know, speed, you know, was your best security. Get out of and if you're in an engagement area, get the fuck out of the engagement area first and foremost.
Always get off the X. Yeah.
So Phil Coughlin's over on Rumble for $10. Thank you, brother. A sign I kept by my bed during my hockey playing days: get up and train while your opponent sleeps. Still applies. Yeah.
It does.
This is absolutely right.
Like I just put in the chat down in the YouTube chat was like, when I'm driving around with certain guys who have been there, done that, I might still call out, put mobile left or derelict vehicle right. Just, it's one of those things that just comes natural, right?
Yeah.
Crash on the left.
Weirdly, I'm going to make a prediction here. I think in the next couple years, probably 2 to 3, you're going to see something like Waze start to add things like that to the list of things they already have that you could add to marks that are on the road. Like, hey, there's a cop here, or hey, there's a stopped vehicle.
And if they don't, somebody else will make an app that does that. It will basically be a collective security app, and they will make $1 million. Probably more than $1 million.
Hint. I know somebody recently pitched a similar idea to me.
I'm just saying, you know, if you don't like that idea, you don't like money. All right.
You want to mention that one as just kind of a supplemental odds and ends? Oh no, wait, I forget. Never mind.
Yeah. So next up is our Brushbeater store ad. So let me. Today, we're confronting the escalating dangers in our own backyard. We're proud to bring you another ad by our trusted sponsor, the Brushbeater store, arming you for a country on edge. America's a powder keg in 2025. IEDs on the road, Molotov cocktails hit, pro-Israel rallies in Boulder, illegal immigrants fuel violence, counter protests, and terror attacks spike from coast to coast. From firebombs injuring dozens to leftist radicals clashing with cops, the threats are real and growing. At brushbeater.store, you can gear up to protect yourself. A level 3A ballistic helmet, rigorously tested by Matt, shields you in urban chaos and pairs with night vision goggles for round-the-clock readiness. The Kyber Optics MDO, exclusive to Brushbeater, is a compact red dot optic for pinpoint accuracy and high-stakes defense. Ideal for volatile streets. To train like a pro, the 2025 Small Unit Tactics course teaches you to move, fight, and outmaneuver threats as a team with classes in North Carolina, Montana, Missouri, and more. Check out brushbeater.store/collections/training courses or collections-optics to secure your gear now. Use our exclusive code CFC10 at checkout for 5% off helmets, Kyber Optics training, or other gear like radios or manuals. Orders over $100 ship free. Visit brushbeater.store. Prep for the fight. Huge thanks to Matt, owner of the Brushbeater store. Matt, your dedication to the council and future conflicts and our community survival is unmatched. Thank you. Head to brushbeater.store. Use code CSC10 and stand ready in a dangerous nation. Now, let's talk about that danger. Actually, we're going to talk about Russia first. There's so much good stuff in the store. I was actually showing people at work the other day, Brushbeater store.
Yeah, it's like the 782 gear shop. He's got everything you need, man. He's like the SIF, right? Just stop in.
Well, and the cool thing is, if you don't see it, let him know that that's something that you're looking for, and he could probably source it or find or help you find a better place to do it. Most likely, he'll help you source it. All right, Russian revenge. So let me just start by saying, I don't think Russia's revenge has happened yet.
No.
I think that what you saw in Kiev over the last couple of days, and I think some of the other kind of attacks, is basically just things that they did to kind of like, just to be able to say they did something for their internal domestic audience, and they're not responding. I think the ultimate response will be something much more significant. They're probably going to target Zelensky with a very high. My bet is they will use strategic assets to go after Zelensky and kill Zelensky. And I think that actually is probably something that could get us closer to peace, if I'm honest. Because Zelensky is kind of trying to martyr himself, I think, for this cause, and I don't think that the Ukrainian people want to follow him into the abyss. And if he jumps into the abyss and is gone, I think that, well, we had a good fight. Let's go ahead and wrap this one up and call it a day, shall we? Now that Zelensky's gone.
Well, of course, all this also comes and continues to happen while they're negotiating. It's almost like they don't want the war to end. But that can't possibly be true, right?
No, that's crazy talk, Joe. There's no way that could be true.
All right.
Wow. Yeah, I really think we're going to see something along the lines of the MRBMs, using conventional warheads, and those things are very accurate. And I think, like I said, they're going to target someplace where they have a very high confidence that Zelensky is at. And those things go so fast that it's literally probably, I can't imagine it's from shoot to hit. It's probably 8 to 10 minutes max.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's with multiple. If they shot, let's say they used 10, that's got 8 of those MIRVs on each one. If they all had basically 1,000-pound, warheads on them, not nukes, but conventional warheads, then there's no fucking way that they don't get him. If they know where they know he's in a grid or something like that.
Yeah, I think that the last time that they responded with that, it was a warning to the West that, hey, you are dangerously close to crossing a line. And I think that now we have crossed that line. And even J.D. Vance the other day, he made a slight slip when he said, we are co-belligerents with a madman. And he shouldn't have used the term co-belligerents, because that has a very specific legal connotation in the international world. And it proves Russia's point that NATO is involved. And that's a point that Mike Shelby really was trying to make around the internet the other day, but the NAFO bros were not having it, was that there's literally no way possible that Ukraine pulled this off without NATO targeting assistance, right? Those planes were out not for the Ukrainians to see or because the Ukrainians have a capability to see it, but they were out as part of a treaty with NATO, and NATO are the ones who can see them and tell the Ukrainians then exactly where those planes were. And I don't just mean airbase. I mean down to what specific grid square to hit.
Yeah.
Right? 10-meter grid square to hit to actually strike a plane. They didn't pull that off by luck. They didn't pull that off by observation because they probably moved those planes around a little bit. They pulled that off by somebody telling them these are the exact coordinates you need to punch in.
Yeah, it's Russia's traditionally been very good at intel, but I mean, even in these kind of wars, Ukraine is. Let's be honest, Ukraine used to be Russian intel, right? I mean, the guys, so they know all the same tricks, and let's be honest. The one thing that I will never say about the Ukrainians is that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Because there are some highly competent, highly technically capable professionals that work inside the Ukrainian security apparatus. I mean, hell, the operation they just pulled off was technically brilliant. The problem is it was just potentially very unwise in its target and scope. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, it's all right, let's get into this story here. Putin plots revenge for Russia's Black Day. Tyrant poised to spy masters after strike on nuclear bombers was launched from a warehouse beside intelligence headquarters. Good Lord, did you hear about this, Joe? I didn't. This story was the first place I had heard that this was the case. With Kiev now bracing for Putin's devastating response, the Russian. You got to love UK media and their cognitive biases. The Russian tyrant stayed out of sight since the attacks on multiple air bases in Ukraine's audacious Operation Spiderweb, a top secret mission some 18 months in the making, showing off Ukraine's capability to stagger the Russian invasion. But an insider warned that Putin will hit back at Ukraine while also avenging his underlings who allowed this humiliation to happen. The sleeping FSB security service, headed by close ally Bornikov, faces some blame over Ukraine using a warehouse next door to an intelligence headquarters in Chelyabinsk to prepare the drone strikes on his air bases. Pro-Russia Telegram channel Fighter Bomb, believed to be run by Captain Ilya Tumanov of the Russian army, acknowledges that Sunday would later be called a black day for Russian long-range aviation and a day that is not over yet. Ukraine will now be bracing for Russia's response. Russia claimed that it had intercepted 162 Ukrainian drones overnight and struck back with the Shahed drones seen on video diving and exploding in a fireball in Izum. Kharkov region was hit as it hit a target. Germany's defense chief warned Putin has fostered a massive increase in battle tanks, as many as 1,500 each. Joe, I thought they were running out of tanks.
I was told that they were out of tanks.
These are experts, Western experts, that said that the Russia will soon run out of tanks. I mean, let's be honest. Yeah, Russia is emptying its warehouses of all the old use. The T-72s are getting refitted and they're getting thrown back in the fight. And yeah, they're losing a fair number of those. That being said, there are a lot of new build tanks. There are warehouses full of T-90s just hanging around.
Yeah, just chilling. Actually, they're good ones. Yes.
So those tanks are coming off the assembly line. There's an intent. There's a buildup of stocks for a possible future attack on NATO Baltics. See, this is where they're just smoking dope. No, Russia has no desire to attack NATO. That's my assessment. Putin's going to say it in our next in one of our upcoming stories, though.
Yeah.
Let's see. Tanks and munitions at they said that Russia is replacing troops, tanks, and munitions at an unprecedented pace, on course to build up a stockpile 3 times greater than the United States and Europe combined. Wow. I mean, Joe, they went from can't make tanks to 3 times the NATO stockpile. How does this happen?
And they're almost out of military-age males, too. An extra 55,000 are volunteering every month. So
exactly right. Western military and intelligence officials also told Wall Street Journal that Russian military engineers were expanding army bases near the border with Finland, expected to house tens of thousands of troops in the coming years. You make Finland a NATO ally, and they have to now build, their kind of counterbalance force along that border.
I'd also like to point something out is that some folks told me that I was crazy for my evaluation. Same one that Mike Shelby had, that the attack that came from the Norway/Finland/Russia border area, well, the attack came from inside either Norway or Finland. Those three come together way up at the top of the Scandinavian the Scandinavian Peninsula. They come together in a really close, dense area, and the attack came from that area. And because, well, there's no way that NATO could have known that. Trust me, that's some tightly controlled airspace. They knew the minute a drone of that size or quality was in the air. And their failure to do anything about it shows that we had a hand in it. So,
let's see. Random PMW guy 84 for $2 says, "Where were you? Were you around Karma? I was there in 2007 near Fallujah, going towards Ramadi." Yeah, so I don't know. The name is not a name I'm familiar with, but if you know that area, you know the order is Fallujah, Abu Flais, TQ, Habaniya. Those are the two camps, and then you've got what was it? The K-Town, Al-Khalidia, which is where the bridge into the northern part of that AO is, and then it's just kind of a straight shot going. I can't remember all the towns along that way, but yeah. The big bases were TQ, which was the big Marine Air Base right up next to, and then across the street, which is where we were at, was Habaniya, Camp Habaniya. What's that?
We were neighbors. There's a contractor facility on the Marine Air Base.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Who were the contractors? The contractors there were... It was like Wolfpack or something like that. And we were like, these guys are like all old big sods in the motor pool types. Not like, we thought like the contractors are supposed to be like former SF dudes. These guys are all former like supply sergeants.
Well, there's contractors and there's contractors, right?
That's exactly right. I don't know if you remember, there was a big ammo holding facility where contractor EOD guys were basically blowing up ammo south of TQ. There was the route. Most of the time, you didn't go route Michigan to Ramadi. You went around Lake Habaniya to go into the Camp Ramadi and all that kind of stuff. Blue Diamond on the backside, and that's along that road is where that place was, and those guys were always kind of hanging out over there.
Yeah, and I know everyone likes to think that most contractors were former SOF guys, but I can assure you there were certain contractor formations that were almost entirely former military police, almost like they targeted that group.
Well, it makes sense as a security force. I mean, those guys are kind of a T at security, right? All right. Let's see. There's a little more to this article here. We have to be ready by 2029. So, I mean, they have until 2029, I guess, to be ready. This is the German guy assessed. If you ask me now, is this a guarantee that it's not earlier than 2029? I would say no, it's not. I was like, yeah, because the fastest you can be ready is 2029 is what I think is why that number is up there.
I think that's incredibly optimistic.
Yeah.
Well, you got to understand that's a bureaucrat doing planning considerations, not an actual realistic.
That's a budget planner, right?
Yeah. Right.
And what I think is funny is some of the silly comments that the media makes, and everyone gasps and clutches their pearls over when they say, like, Keir Starmer said British military should prepare for war.
Yeah.
What are the military? Of course, they should prepare for war. They should always be ready for war. Increase war readiness. If your military is not always ready to fight tomorrow, then you don't really have a military. You have a social program.
Yeah. It's funny. I used to wonder why Europeans got so touchy about defense stuff. And now I realize why. The truth is, like, before Ukraine, if Russia really wanted to, they could have walked in and blown over most of Europe like a feather.
Well, the thing that if you ever wondered, like, you'd say, like, how is it that they can afford all this social? It's like all the social safety net stuff, right? And the answer is, well, because they outsource all of their military spending to. See, that's just it, Watcher.
Well, it's both. Like, they outsource all their military spending.
They have higher taxes, but ultimately that doesn't make up for it, right? It's essentially they were spending like 0.5% of GDP on military spending when they should have been spending like 4%. I think the NATO number was 2%.
Yeah,
but now they're gone up to. But here's the interesting thing: what happens in Europe when they actually start spending 4 and 5% of GDP? They don't get to have all these, gold-plated social programs. Then what happens?
Oh no, factual. I see a question in chat I can't help but address real quick. Cassius says, "I don't think Ukraine could hold out another 4 years." My brother in Christ, I don't think Ukraine can hold out another 4 months.
Right.
All right. Let's close this one out and move on. So this is a Noel reports. This is a pro-Europe, pro-Ukraine. No, not this one. That's old video. I deleted that one. Let's see. The next one is a Noel report. So this is basically Russia's counterattack in the last 48 hours. Overnight, Russia launched a massive drone attack on multiple Ukrainian cities. In Chernihiv, a private home burned down, a school, an apartment, a building, and a business were all damaged. 4 people were hospitalized. In Odessa, several homes and infrastructure were hit, vehicles burned. My understanding is that the warehouse that burned in Odessa was full of munitions and other lickies and chewies provided by NATO. And there was another facility that I heard that was hit that had, I think it was at an airport that had, what is it? The NATO advisors at that facility. So it'll be interesting to see if you get any reports on dead NATO.
What will happen is the NATO countries will report that those people died somewhere else, right? Yeah. We saw that with Poland when they announced they lost like 4 paratroopers in one day, but all in various incidents throughout Poland, which happened like the day after a Russian strike on a hotel.
Yeah.
So interesting.
In Kharkiv region, a civilian facility was struck, destroying a postal terminal. 1 person was killed and another injured.
So this is one of those, and I put it in air quotes, OSINT accounts that is grossly biased and only reports things in a certain way. I don't doubt that Russia struck these civilian targets. I don't doubt it at all, because both sides have been absolutely horrible in this. But they also don't mention some of the civilian infrastructure hit by the Ukrainians. And they've been they called this specifically a war crime, yet they were cheering on the defeated, no bootlace having, 0 piece of gear having Russian soldier who had the drone blown up in his face.
Yeah.
And the more I look at that video, the more credibility the story that the Ukrainians frequently release POWs to do this, to make propaganda videos with, kind of lended it credence, because the guy didn't even have shoelaces in his boots. So crazy.
Yeah.
I'm not saying one side's better than the other. I'm just saying one side's way better at propaganda than the other.
I have breaking news in this regard, gents. Here, I'll put it on the screen. Zero Hedge says Putin says he doubts summit with Zelensky is possible.
Yeah, I've got the quotes here. Putin, who even negotiates with those who bet on terror? Putin. It's not for the Kiev regime to judge the level of Russian delegation. Putin says he doubts possibility of a summit with Ukraine and a ceasefire amidst latest attacks. Putin, the Kiev regime, already illegitimate, is degenerating into a terrorist organization. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is something we've feared for a long time. I mean, like I said, there's plenty of great people in Ukraine that have something that they feel is worth fighting for. That being said, the problem is they're being led by the most corrupt government in Europe. And you don't believe us? Ask New York Times in January of back in 2021. They did multiple stories on neo-Nazis in the Ukraine government, the corruption, massive corruption in the Ukraine government. Why is NATO even dealing with these crooks? These types of statements. So,
or read the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners annual corruption in government report, going back any of the last 20 years, and see who's at the top.
Yeah. Germany now labels AfD as extremists.
Which I do have to say that if your country is somehow beating out, let's just say, some of your Baltic neighbors in a scam contest, Jesus Christ. Wow.
What's this? Russia wants 10,000 troops on Ukraine's border. Moldova says no thanks. Russia's eyeing a troop buildup in Transnistria. Interesting. Interesting. I'll be honest with you. That would be that would be a tricky thing to do. But that's not that. It's it. Well, see, that's what I'm saying. It would be tricky to get them in. I'm not saying you couldn't do it,
but that would bear out the Odessa theory.
It's still on the menu. Yeah. Well, I mean, their designs for that entire coast have always been obvious. They want to control the entire coastline of the Black Sea.
They still hold South Ossetia, and Abkhazia.
If they wanted to ensure that Ukraine couldn't be logistically exist as a nation, that's all they have to do.
So without NATO resolve, they can actually force the 10,000 troops in, because first of all, Russia does not care one whit what Moldova thinks. They own Transnistria, and it's just that simple. There are no Moldovan troops in Transnistria, so they could fly them in over the Black Sea. And I don't think that NATO has the resolve, nor does Moldova, to actually shoot those planes down. So they can get them in if they decide to put them in.
Yeah, here's the problem there, and this is why I said this is tricky, is that Moldova is not a member of NATO, but they are a partner, a NATO partner. Yeah. And if Moldova and Russia started. If Russia started trying to fly troops into Transnistria, first of all, they'd have to get past Ukrainian air defense and air, which would attempt to shoot them down. I don't know how. I don't know enough to be able to speak to how effective that could be. But then they have to kind of thread the whole NATO needle, right? If Moldova starts trying to shoot down Russian transport planes, then does Russia hit Moldova, and then how does NATO respond?
I don't think Moldova has the chops to do it on their own. I get it. There is the option of NATO assistance, but I don't think NATO has the resolve to kill Russians in large numbers.
Yeah,
anyway.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know that it can be done. The problem is that I just don't. it's going to be tricky. I'll go back to my original statement. I don't know exactly how you square the circle on that, but it can be done, but it would be tricky.
Well, particularly with here's the other side of this. When we're saying NATO, we're saying America, because as we've just pointed out, most of the rest of NATO doesn't have enough of a military to maintain civil order of their country, if it came to that, let alone effectively defend themselves, let alone defend another nation from attack.
Well, I would imagine there are shipments of goods and flights and things like that civilian stuff that goes into Transnistria. I mean, you can smuggle a lot of that in,
No, sure, but then immediately, as soon as it's one of the NATO weapons that does it, then Russia goes, all right. So whichever country it was is a co-belligerent. Like
Russia will say, you just added 10,000 American and 2,000 British troops to Lithuania. So all we're doing is the exact same thing you're doing. And they kind of got us there on a diplomatic side because it's true.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just kind of there's several pieces of news that are all kind of NATO to Europe, buy missile shields or hope for the best. NATO just asked European countries to ramp up the missile defenses fivefold to prep for possible showdown with Russia. Years of cutting back and shipping weapons to Ukraine created a giant hole in Europe's defense. Joe, if only there was a YouTube. I mean, we're just a bunch of YouTube dummies, What do we know? We were saying this, 3 years ago?
Absolutely. Yeah, from the very beginning that, hey, let's not empty the cupboard because we might need that someday.
Boy.
I mean, if they truly believe that Russia is a threat to NATO, they shouldn't. It's like, listen, it's kind of like your mask and your kid's mask on an airplane. Always take care of your mask first, then put a mask on the kid, right?
Right.
The other side of this is just staggering, right? Is like I just want you to imagine. Let's use the metaphor of a neighborhood, right? Like you know that there's a neighbor that you're really scared of, and you're really scared that they're going to come and drive your whole neighborhood out of their houses with guns, right? They're going to try and claim everybody's property, and you're in your house and you hear the neighbor that lives closest to them start to get overrun and shots start happening. And instead of running to fetch a weapon or figuring out some way to defend yourself, you basically spend 3 years just yelling over the garden fence, yeah, go neighbor, you can get Russia, you can do it. You'd think that there would be some rapid, unbelievable defense procurement in the last 3 years, and instead what we see is practically bupkis.
Well, so the irony there is that, hey, we need to get all this missile defense. And yet, if you go to the second link on the show notes, shows what happens when Russian, not that one. Go back to the show notes. Look at the show notes. Iskander strike on claimed IRIS-T radar. This is what happens when you preload the rough version of the notes. You miss the refinement. Yeah, there we go. So the IRIS-T is an advanced European radar, anti-missile and aircraft radar, and this is a claimed Iskander strike on an IRIS-T location in Ukraine.
Ask me how I knew this was a Russian video before any words were read.
I would assume there's some sort of turbo folk.
No, the opposite. The opposite. The Russians, for a while now, have been trying to contrast themselves to Ukrainians, and so, in fact, I might here.
Oh, dramatic.
Yeah. Dramatic, but still like leaning on classics, right?
So their music game is a little bit better than the Ukrainians.
I would say it doesn't make me want to kill myself every time I boot up one of their videos. Yeah.
So if the third picture was what that system looks like, you can see that this, and if you go back to the previous image, this is obviously the same thing or a very similar system. Iris T is kind of like the what it looks like is a green truck with a tan version of the radar, which I don't know why they wouldn't just paint that fucker green, because it stands out. It makes it easier to see on the video when you make it tan.
Now, bro, the Americans had the GWAT, so everything has to be tan so we can be cool like the Americans.
That's right. That's right. You don't want to lose any of that GWAT drip.
Yeah.
Right. Let's see. Yeah. So anyway, Russia attacking NATO, right? Well, I mean, if only we had somebody who has maybe a invested interest in Russian responses to NATO, actions, to give us a quote on. Oh, wait a second, we do. His name is Vladimir Putin. Here's a quote from Vladimir. They invented that Russia wants to attack NATO. Have you completely lost your minds? Dumb as this table? It's nonsense. Utter rubbish. It would be rubbish if it wasn't a plan to trick their own population into saying, help, Russia is going to attack soon. We must arm ourselves urgently. Send weapons to Ukraine. In reality, it's done to preserve their own imperial standing and might. Look at NATO's potential and Russia's potential. Did you decide we're crazy or something? And so Putin's not wrong here. Putin could easily outmatch a Ukraine or even maybe like a Poland, right, on its own. But if you take the collective response, and even though they're kind of on their ass right now of NATO, that would assume you're also fighting America in that. Russia doesn't want that kind of pain. Trust me. It's hard enough being a Russian without going to war at all, much less a Russian at war. What a nightmare that is. It's like they invented austerity.
Yeah, if you read any Russian authors,
yeah, it's like
get that
suffering as
impression.
a national religion in Russia.
Yeah.
Latest on Russian aircraft loss assessment from Ukrainian drone strikes. Synthetic aperture radar imagery that TWZ has obtained from ICI US further points to multiple Russian Tu-95 Bear bombers having been damaged or destroyed at the airbase. In Russia's unprecedented covert drone, Ukraine. Yeah, situated in Russia's eastern Irkutsk region, Belaya was one of 5 bases that Ukraine targeted in an unprecedented covert drone attack over the weekend. Exactly how many Russian attack aircraft were struck remains unconfirmed. Readers can first get up to speed on what's known, and then let's see. So you can see some of this imagery here. I mean, Joe, I think it's pretty obvious. They took some hits. Looks like 1, 2, 3, 4 damaged or destroyed Tu-95s in this one. Probable Tu-95 bomber destroyed there.
So from the last I've heard, Russia is admitting to between 8 and 12 that are either destroyed or long-term out of commission.
Yeah. I bet almost every one of these that was hit is out of the fight. They basically got to turn into a parts bird, probably. Ukrainian authorities claim to have hit 41 aircraft in total, including Tu-95 Bear, Tu-22M Backfire, Tu-160 Blackjack bombers, as well as an A-50 Mainstay airborne early warning and control aircraft. I've seen video to make me believe that A-50 Mainstay hit was credible. In addition to Belaya, Russia's 1, 2, 3, 4 other bases were targeted and said to be hit. New York Times separately reported today that as many as 20 planes at Balea and Olina at least were struck, citing unnamed American and European security officials. At least 13 aircraft were destroyed. Independent verification of these claims remains difficult. Yeah, no shit. ICI's specific assessments regarding Balea do align with what can be seen in other SAR imagery that particular base now circulating. Commercial satellite providers that offer SAR imaging capability have been a go-to since Ukraine launched its drone attacks due to heavy cloud cover over the targeted bases in Russia. SAR provides a valuable all-weather imaging option that can also see through smoke, dust, and other obscurants. Satellite imagery shows Ukraine attack destroyed and damaged bombers. What we're seeing across multiple theaters reinforces why persistent all-weather monitoring capabilities is essential for understanding rapidly evolving situation. I tell you, Joe, what I would give for this kind of like real-time, commercial and military, imagery of places. I mean, just having Google Earth back in like the 2008 was like. It was like next level. Like having that was just like, holy shit.
Yeah, but that's not real time. And even most commercial satellites, to prevent their use in certain uses, is not real time. It's delayed at best. Some of it is days old. Some of it is 30 minutes old.
And the best is bought up essentially. Like the American intelligence community basically goes and say, hey, we're going to buy up all of your satellite time, yeah. To basically control that asset.
Yeah, they say you can release this on a 4-day window, right? You can put out 4-day-old images, but not current. So
yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, there's I'm just kind of looking at some of the further images. Watcher, if you scroll down, there's more. It appears to be one of the mainstay.
Yeah. Well, as long as we're talking about this, I've had a question on the first day, and I've seen other people say the same question, which is why did these bombers have tires on the wings before the drone attacks? And it turns out, or at least the answer that I've seen offered, is that the Russians have been doing this since 2023, and it's because it breaks up the visual and thermal overall signature of the aircraft. So if you're using a cheap automation system, you're probably just punching in all known Russian assets from every angle you've got and then saying this is a valid target, and then using a simple AI image matching service on the camera in order to hone in on that target. So theoretically that could have worked, but I suppose this means that either those were piloted or the AIs got significantly better.
Yeah, I think these were they I guess there are some reports that that there was some AI, some basic AI functionality on some of these drones, but I still think these were piloted.
In my opinion, that's what that suggests. And I think that they only had the tires on the like really high strategic ones, which is weird because like it's Russia. You'd think that old bald shitty tires are not exactly a hard thing to come across.
Yeah. All right. Let's move along. So as it turns out, the bombers weren't the only target. I think a day later, Crimea Bridge reopens after Ukraine says it carried out an underwater explosion. Traffic has resumed across Crimea's Kerch Bridge this afternoon, hours after Ukraine struck its foundation with an underwater explosives. A hated symbol for Ukraine.
Was off target, but
What's that?
that explosion is not where it needed to be to cause actual damage right there.
Yeah.
It's a little bit off center. So.
Well, I figured that if they opened it up that quickly, then that probably indicated that it didn't do everything it meant to do. And the whole point of, you see those kind of like white kind of circular things. These are designed to kind of.
Yeah, they kind of look like the water version of the traffic pylons that they put at the front of concrete barriers, just in case somebody falls asleep and runs into them.
Yeah.
Well, I think they're meant to do exactly what they just did there, and that's prematurely detonate a torpedo or underwater object before it hits the target. So.
Let's see. Ukraine targets bridge in Crimea, not for the first time. Earlier this morning, it was targeted. So if you go to the next one, we've got essentially some video, one that shows the actual attack. Yeah, I think you've already shown that video, but you can show it again. So This is from the Ukraine government. SBU conducted a new unique special operations and struck the Crimea bridge for a third time, this time underwater. The operation lasted several months. SBU agents mined the support of this illegal facility. I don't know. Okay. I mean, illegal facility.
Well, my question is, what was the goal? If your goal was to damage or bring down the bridge, you failed miserably.
Yeah, what is this device, do you suppose?
I think it's part of the power infrastructure that goes up on top of the bridge.
So I think that's probably what was being aimed for here, because that appears to be where the explosion was.
Yeah. I mean, this is easy to combat. You just throw up underwater netting. I mean,
their obsession with this bridge.
So that's the point I was just about to make, right? Is that, okay, neat. What did you do to degrade Russian combat effectiveness with this? Nothing. It's a waste of assets then. Those assets would have been better used hitting a railhead or hitting where this bridge meets land, where you could actually do some damage.
Yeah, right? Something that's more important and critical to the actual war effort. This is kind of like in the closing days of the war, Hitler was focused on like super weapons and things like this. And if he had just put the same energy and money into tried and true weapons, then maybe he would have, had a better hand to play. But
I just want to point this out. Like, so this one, the October 22nd one, that was when they launched a couple of our long-range ATACMs at it. Spent, how much were those a pop? They're like 20 million a pop, right?
Yeah.
More? So if I remember correctly, they launched like 5. They hit like 3. They blew like 3, what was it, 9-inch diameter holes in the bridge. They were patched in under 3 days. At a cost of roughly 80, 90 million, $100 million. Not their money, though.
Yeah, and they used those at the beginning of their big offensive. And I said at the time, and I stand by it to this day, they would have been far more effective used to blow a hole in the Russian defensive lines rather than attacking this bridge.
And then this one, the July 20, the one in 2023, that was, if I remember correctly, that was a Ukrainian self-designed sailing drone that was launched by a special operations team off of a rubber raft. I think the spec op team got to about like here-ish and then launched it. And then it sailed the rest of the way. Now,
actually, I think the July one is where they had some poor schmuck drive a truck.
Oh, that's right. That was the truck one. You're right.
Yeah,
because they're not even counting the sail one. Because they're not even counting the sail one because it didn't actually stop any traffic on the bridge. That's funny.
Yeah, they kept driving right on by him. And here's the thing: it's as good as that attack was, and how they got in there deep and got an attack. If Russia had done the same thing, everyone would have been screaming about the war crime of using a driver unwittingly, right? And again, Ukraine did that just the other day. These Russian truck drivers had no idea what was in the cargo containers of their trucks.
Also, something we didn't bring up. If you don't think that doesn't change the calculation for global trade and just make literally every goddamn thing more expensive, you're out of your mind.
You also have a whole lot of dudes speaking Arabic going, hey.
That's what I'm saying is like literally like they're gonna have to start scanning almost every fucking package that comes in from high risk areas for this kind of shit.
And not just people speak Arabic, dudes just speak Chinese.
So anyway, if you the last tweet in this section is we can see probably what they're using. This is the underwater unmanned vehicle.
Oh, I see this one. Wait, is this? No, that was a.
That's this. It's the one underneath that one.
There we go.
Yeah,
and I will say this kind of innovative. If I understand it correctly, this is essentially a torpedo pod with 4 in the back. It's 4 motors.
It's like a really big torpedo.
Yeah, but it also kind of means that like and like talking about this purely as a gear format thing. This is kind of brilliant when you look at like the type of special operations underwater and like surface insertion vehicles that we've been researching ever since World War II.
DSRV.
Yeah, one that carries a torpedo inside, like that. Essentially, the body is just a torpedo that you can ride. It's kind of fucking really smart, especially for a low budget company or low budget
versions of the sealed delivery vehicle weren't much different than this.
Yeah.
Holds on the side, right?
Yeah. It's neat, particularly for a really low budget country that hasn't been doing a lot of research in this area. It's kind of. I also like the modern take of the electric engines. They make it pretty damn maneuverable. But
low budget, they get everybody's money.
Well, yeah. Well, there is that. The auto ballasting is really cool too. By the way, I don't know if you guys realize that's what they were showing there when it the water out of the top is that it has the ability to submerge itself and auto ballast through these little ports here.
All right, gentlemen, let's talk about. I mean, as interesting as the Ukraine-Russia stuff is, let's talk about terror in America.
Let's talk about literally anything else.
Let's get this first one. You're out of order there, Watcher.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
We're out of order.
You can't handle the truth.
Just follow the plan, man. It's easy. This Amy Mech account on Twitter or X has been just on fire. You know, she was the one that was just the steady drumbeat of information about all the Muslim stuff. What was it? What was the name of the Epic settlement? You know, the where the Muslim town.
The one in Texas.
Yeah, she's been like just kind of pumping it out. It's good to see people like that. She's got 511,000 followers now.
That exist all over the country already, but the idea of these towns violates federal law. It violates the Civil Rights Act. You can't say only certain people can live here.
Boulder Muslim, this is the guy we talked about on Monday. Boulder Muslims declare jihad more beloved than family before terror plot. Mohammed Sabri Suleiman, an illegal Muslim in Colorado, recorded a chilling video before his planned Islamic terror attack. Jihad is more beloved to me than my mother, my wife, and my children. Allah is greater than the Zionists and America. Let that sink in. This isn't the lone wolf extremism. This is textbook Islam, straight from the Quran, the Hadith, and the example of Muhammad himself. Across the globe, Islamic terrorists credit Islam, the religion itself, as their mission, their motivation, and their justification. Islam hasn't been hijacked. Islam is the pilot. Quran 9:33, 48:28, and 61:9 commands Muslims to take Islam triumphant over every religion by jihad if necessary. That's not a fringe interpretation. That's doctrine. That's what drove bin Laden, al-Zarqawi, and now Mohammed Suleiman. It's critical to hear Suleiman invoke the Islamic war cry of Allah Akbar. Western media likes to water it down as God is great. That's a lie. God, it means Allah is greater than your country, your God, your laws, and your life. It's a declaration of religious supremacy. Allah Akbar is an anthem of jihad shouted during beheadings, suicide bombers, stabbing, and mass shootings. From 9/11 to Boulder, from Paris to Nigeria, to cry echoes across the blood-soaked battlefield of Islamic conquest, heralding murder in the name of Islam. As Western leaders look away, Islamic jihad advances from Boulder to Brussels, Kashmir to Kenya, and deep in U.S. schools, mosques, corporations, and legislatures. This is not about terrorism. It's about religious supremacy wrapped in divine command. Until we stop pretending and start recognizing it for what it is, religiously mandated global conquest through jihad, we will keep losing ground, freedom, and lives. Man, that's she's going hard in the paint there, but I'll be honest with you.
Boulder police still say they will not call it a terrorist attack.
Let's listen. Yeah, let's listen to this video here on this clip. Why you still don't have it up?
Well, I did. I got to the bottom, and I played the whole video. It's all in Arabic, so I don't know why you'd want to listen to it.
Why not? I thought I could. Let's just mute it and I'll read this.
Wait.
I thought we just did.
Yeah, you read most of them in the story. Not all of them, but most of them.
Well, right. I mean, there's some of them is in there, but I just thought I would kind of give some of the meat of the video again, because I mean, I think it's important for us to hear. Like, this is what the guy actually said. Allah is greater than anything. Allah is greater than the Zionist. Allah is greater than American weapon. Joe, I mean, you got enough right there to call this terror.
I know, but they said they will not.
Allah is greater than everything else. F-35 planes. So why do those fear those who are inferior to Allah rather than fear Allah himself? I told my wife and son every day to do something, but they didn't do it. Maybe I would divorce my wife. Maybe I would kick my son out of the home. Then what about Allah, who says to us every day, dozens of times, Allahu Akbar? Don't forget, Allahu Akbar. Do not forget Allah is greater than everything, not the Zionists, Britain, France, or Germany. Allah has the right to be feared. I say to my mother, my wife, my children, my brothers, my people, I attest before Allah and before you that Allah, his messenger, are more beloved to me than you and the whole world are. I mean, he's clearly like, he's gone down all the way down the pathway. And we saw where that ended up. This guy deserves the death penalty. I don't know. You know, they're talking about, kicking his family out, like, deporting him or his family. I don't think you put this guy in fucking prison and you give him the death penalty, if you ask me. He didn't kill anybody, but he sure as fuck tried.
Yes. Well, he lit people on fire, which to me is a little bit worse, right?
Yeah.
That's not somebody you can work with. So.
Yeah, same with these men who throw like acid on the faces of women. Like these they're designed to actually leave you alive, but do more damage.
Well, I do have a question about this. I don't. Does it matter that Boulder won't call it an investigation? I thought the feds took over the investigation already.
I don't know what's going on. I haven't seen a lot of the. I know that Bongino and Trump both talked about it that day, but I haven't seen anything since.
Okay.
Matt Von Swoll, that's a account I had never heard of before.
Really?
An improvised explosive
reporting on the hurricane.
Yeah. I'm just not familiar with him. Let's see. An IED, or improvised explosive device, has been discovered in the Blue Ridge Parkway in western North Carolina, just 15 miles from my home. Asheville Police Department bomb squad have responded and removed the device. What is going on? He said an update device was found in a dirt pull-off on a parkway near the Folk Art Center. Parkway was closed. Folk Art City was evacuated. And so I guess there's a story here. So this is local news. The bomb squad was called. The suspicious device was found. The device was found on the roadside pull-off. Suspicious object, which was categorized as an IED, improvised incendiary device, was safely removed from the area. It makes me wonder if this was like some sort of like
a forest fire.
Exactly right, trying to start a forest fire.
Which has happened all over the country, so that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. You know,
in an area just hit by an utterly devastating flood.
Right. So I mean, you know, plenty of terror at home. Why do we need to make trouble overseas? We got it all at home. I mean, let's talk real quick just about, we talked about it earlier in the show about IEDs and all this kind of stuff, but ultimately the reason why terrorists used IEDs in Iraq was, so there's two kind of interesting things, is that we were very strong, and it was an asymmetric way to present a threat to a very strong but road tied, you know, they always knew where we were going to be because we were always using the roads. And so, and the other thing that made it a lot easier to do IEDs in Iraq over Afghanistan, though the Afghans figured it out later, was the wide variety of high explosive that was just freely sitting around in all the, you know, Joe, you remember, like there were so many fucking ammo holding areas in Iraq. I mean, it was literally everywhere. And because there was so much of it, they were able to make IEDs using pretty sophisticated high explosives. So the form factor was pretty small. Go ahead.
I just say 155 shells wired together.
Oh yeah, that was yeah. And if they didn't use the 155 shells, they took the explosives out of the 155 shell and then made it into something that maybe was a little more disguised or whatever. What's this right here? Hold on a second.
Sorry, I was muted. This is a DHS. This is just for graphics talk while you're talking about IEDs. This is a DHS release for press, to basically talking points around IEDs and a facts sheet and a couple of other things like what they're usually made out of and how big they can be and how big the blast can be and how big the evacuation distance needs to be and how to try and spot them and that kind of stuff.
And what you have is in countries that don't have a lot of just high explosives just hanging around, like sitting around, like you had in Iraq, like Afghanistan, invariably they'll go to having to make their own explosives, and this is where you get a lot of ANFO bombs. Now, an ANFO bomb has to be a lot bigger to get the same impact, but trust me, you know, they can get just as big an impact with an ANFO bomb as, you know, anything. Like we saw a lot of pressure cookers used as vessels for ANFO. You know, a lot of times they were pressure plate IEDs for dismounted patrols and things like this, versus vehicular IEDs. And you know, in Iraq specifically, we saw the platter charges. You know, those the Iranian shape charges and things like that. There were some pretty sophisticated bomb makers in both countries.
Yeah.
And we developed a lot of that expertise ourselves in learning how to defeat them. And a lot of that expertise came home, and some of it got radicalized by the leftists. So we're going to have fun with that.
All right. So IEDs are now on the menu. Now, this is a kind of a different type of terror, but I think you're going to start to see this. If you have like one or two guys who are being terrorists, it's easy to kind of shut them down and but when you have a really normal looking people coming to violently disrupt, legitimate government operations, i.e. in this case here, we've got an ICE operation that gets kind of countered by local
literally
protesters.
Sedition.
Yeah.
Sedition is defined as interfering with the enforcement of federal law by force. That's what they're doing right here.
And so the headline here, I don't quite agree with this headline because it's a little more complicated than this. Sheriff in Minneapolis refuses to arrest protester attempting to stop immigration enforcement. I think they know they can't arrest everybody. And if you pull a guy out of the line to arrest somebody, then you're not able to continue to stop. Then you have to stop the vehicles. They want to get the vehicles out of there. So they chose to continue to, basically block for the vehicles, which makes sense to me. Joe, this is more in your kind of
I think they handled that well. I think that was the way to do it. Get the vehicles out. Now, afterward, of course, then it's time to start grabbing the guys who did it. I like that deputy thought he got away with that, but I'm just going to thump this guy off the floor one time. Oh, crap. There was a camera right there. I think that you get the vehicles out of the way first. Then you go back and you snatch up that guys like that guy, right? All right. Yeah. Well, I know who it was. That was the first interaction between those two. Watch. The guy catches up with him and he thumps him right off the ground.
It's all right. The guy bounces. It's fine.
What?
So, I thought they...
Oh, whoops. You bumped into me.
I think they handled it pretty well.
They did.
It's but these crowds are going to grow. They're going to use coordination. They've got radios too. Matt doesn't check to make sure you're a red-blooded American when you buy a DM32 radio from him. So he could literally be the number one supplier to North Carolina Antifa, and he'd probably do it with a smile. But
right.
I mean, money's money. Everybody's got to make a living, and nobody's getting killed with a radio. Well, at least not until the IEDs start getting Baofeng triggers on them, which could happen.
Well, that's not a Baofeng specific thing. That's literally.
I know that, Joe.
But you mentioned Baofeng and explosives, and that means for the next 3 days, me and Matt are going to get 100 emails about, are there explosives in my Baofeng radio?
Yeah.
No, bro.
Are these the Israeli Baofengs?
You issued your radio from a sketchy Israeli Hamas connection? No.
Hey, we got some IDF pager overruns. Really good deal on these. It's.
My favorite thing about that, the longer you look into it, is how is it not a red flag for those assholes that nobody was like they had already had a hard time procuring that particular pager in the past because nobody was still making it, and that was their previous procurement period. Was that not a hint for you that maybe if it's really limited and funnelable, that might be a risk?
Right?
It's just
Chris now says in the chat, yes, you should send your radio to me. I shall dispose of it for you.
Lance Corporal Veteran for $2 says, I think somebody leaked this op to the left. Yeah, 100%. There, you're finding that everywhere, especially in sanctuary cities. I mean, there's just a lot of eyeballs, and there's not. And invariably they have to like coordinate with local law enforcement and things like that. And all it takes is one or two sympathetic ears in the local law enforcement.
Yeah.
All right. The next one here is one of those. Mike Benz was talking about this years ago. So let's go ahead and just catch up to make sure everybody's tracking. The CIA's How to Start a Riot Guide shows use of hiring professional criminals, agitators to get ethnic minority groups, student groups, and unions angry against the government, then trigger riots of 10,000 people with just 100 agitators. This is a long video. Let's just listen to the first little bit here. Get a little flavor.
Classified CIA guide written in 1983 to train CIA operatives in the field on how to organize riots in foreign countries. And here's a tab on using agitators, including hiring professional criminals to manipulate mass meetings and assemblies of people in person, which can result in general violence. And you will see that they advocate for general violence, where the CIA tells the case officers, our psychological war team must develop in advance a hostile mental attitude among the target groups so that at the given moment, they can turn their anger into violence, demanding the rights taken away by the regime. So make these ethnic minority groups so mad at their government in a general sense that whenever we snap the trigger at the given moment, they will turn that general anger into physical violence against the state that we want to overthrow. But this is a CIA guide on getting teachers, doctors, attorneys, and businessmen in a...
I mean, no surprise here. I mean, this is a 1983 guide, so we've been hearing about this stuff for a while. I think I had heard about this maybe like last year. So this is not the first time I heard about this, but Mike Benz is like a really great source for this type of information. So if you're not following him on X, definitely do that. He's got the tism for tyranny in the United States, and he's done a really good job of deep diving and explaining. Why do I get the feeling that Mike Benz is going to be the next Glenn Greenwald? Well, I don't know, man. Mike Benz is like deep into that whole Steve Bannon kind of courtier.
Let me point something out here. This is a massive problem on the right. You're like, he does good research, seems to the light in the loafers. So you have to take good intelligence wherever it comes from. I literally don't care about the source's lifestyle if the source has good information.
Yeah, it's like a lot of you that are discounting a lot of Glenn's previous reporting. If it's got good sources behind it, I don't care if Glenn's a weirdo degenerate. I don't even care that he's a Marxist. I will still investigate his stuff.
I'm going to say something unpopular. Yeah. Snowden was a Russian spy, and there's no way he wasn't. But his information was still valuable, what he told the American public. He didn't tell you that because he thought it would be good for the public. He told you that because he was about to get caught and needed to run and distract everyone. So,
yeah, I still think he should go to jail. But that being said,
he did share some good information, and I'll take it.
I think that's important. I would check that video out over on X. I think it was today is when that came out.
Yeah.
Or yesterday when that video came out. Or that post came out. And, I figure we could end with the doozy of them all today, going out on a bang.
Yeah.
Kash Patel dropping, it's just like we've given up all hope for Kash. He'll do something like this and be like, all right. It's not all bad, but he's just really disappointing me. I can confirm the FBI arrested a Chinese national within the United States who allegedly smuggled a dangerous biological pathogen into the country. The individual, we'll call him Jan, is alleged to have smuggled a dangerous fungus called Fusarium geranium, which is an agro terrorism agent into the U.S. to research at the University of Michigan, where she works. The fungus can cause a disease called head blight, a disease of wheat, barley, maize, and rice, causing significant health issues in both humans and livestock. It's responsible for billions of dollars in economic losses in the worldwide each year. Evidence also indicates that Jian had expressed loyalty to the Chinese Communist Party and had received funding from the Chinese government for similar work on this pathogen in China. Her boyfriend, also charged in a complaint, works at a Chinese university where he conducts research on the same pathogen. Liu is alleged to have first lied, then admitted to also smuggling the same thing into America through the Detroit Metropolitan Airport so that he could conduct research at the University of Michigan. Both individuals have been charged with conspiracy, smuggling goods to the United States, false statements, and visa fraud. The case is sobering reminder that the CCP is working around the clock to deploy operatives and researchers to infiltrate American institutions and target our food supply, which would have grave consequences, putting American lives and our economy at serious risk. The FBI will continue to work tirelessly to be on guard against it.
So this goes further than what he revealed here. Further research reveals that the girlfriend in 2018 authored a research paper. I think the title is even about weaponizing basically agro-terrorism, stuff like this in a rapidly changing climate environment. Basically taking advantage of regions that are getting warmer and or wetter in order to spread things that wouldn't normally occur there that would blight other people. They're being funded by the Chinese government to research this stuff. They researched it over there as well. This is so unbelievably damning. We're also paying for this, by the way. We are paying for our destruction.
Also, if you think back a couple of years, there was the Florida orange disaster that everyone said, "Oh, it was frost. It was frost." Turns out that was not true at all. It was a Chinese bioagent introduced into the orange groves, and it killed off the trees, not the frost.
90%.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's insane. I was just learning about that earlier because somebody in the chat mentioned it.
So this is, okay, so I get it. There's people in the comments, and even Grok says this is not a super rare thing in America, but the problem is not that this is a completely unique thing. This is Chinese people coming to research it on the American dime to then potentially deploy a weaponized version of it into the wild here in America. You can't say it came from China when it actually came from the University of Michigan.
Well, yeah, COVID was a lab leak, right? They would really rather that lab leak happen in Ann Arbor than it happen in Wuhan.
Right. That's exactly right. Thank you.
And
Joe.
if she honestly thought that what she was doing was just research, she wouldn't have had to smuggle it in.
Oh, I forgot to add, she's actually been caught smuggling stuff in before that was considered agro-terrorism agents, if I'm remembering the story correctly. No. She wasn't caught. She has admitted to doing so in other forums, which have now been pulled up. Look, I'm sorry. Let me just, I'm going to repeat a tweet that I made earlier. If an American student were caught doing a similar thing, if an American student were caught smuggling in some sort of biological agent from America that would affect rice crops in China that isn't currently there, that student would be tortured for months, publicly executed, and the day that it was found out, every single American student in China would either be captured or sent home immediately.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that at all.
Speaking of China, Arizona Governor Kate Hobbs vetoes a bill preventing China from buying land near U.S. military bases. Great great.
I mean, ask yourself why any governor, well, exception of Gretchen Whitmer, of course, would veto that.
Yeah.
I can't think of a single reason.
Boy, I'd sure like to see her her travel itinerary from the last 5 years. But there's some interesting Asiatic visits.
You know, guys, I'm not an expert on this kind of thing. I just know it's bad. I don't want to have to deal with, you know, bioterror is the biggest pain in the ass I can think of, if I'm honest, because it just eats us from within, you know. And you know, like COVID showed us that that we are our own worst enemy in those kind of situations.
This stuff's worse than you like. Normally, it's bad, right? You're thinking bioterrorism, so you're thinking crop failures. Oh no, this stuff is actually way worse. The crop still develops, and it's very hard to detect the fungus itself. There's no visual way to do it. You have to test for it. If you eat this grain, it causes severe liver damage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's the thing that I heard that is that it's actually like it actually goes to the people. It doesn't go. It's not just going after the crops.
Yep.
Gentlemen, that's all I got. We're at the 2-hour mark. If you're not worried about your lack of preparedness, I don't know that anything else I could have talked about in the last 30 minutes would have done the trick.
Did you get the $2 by Pinochet?
Oh no, I didn't get that one. Peter says helicopter for $2 says, why are we pretending that the partisan feds got replaced when Trump got in? It's just a lot less local Leo and more likely the feds who incited the crowd.
We're not
skirting with ICE now.
Yeah, we did not. I don't know anyone on this show who has said, "Oh no, the FBI is your friend now. It's all okay." I don't think we've ever said that.
Well, you know, the thing about it is, guys, is that even if we trust Kash Patel, which at this point I don't, but even if we give them a grace and we say he's doing everything he can, you got to figure at least 50% of the FBI is working against him, right? And so he's literally having to fight with one hand tied behind his back, probably both, if I'm honest. And then on top of that, I think he's in CYA mode, probably 24/7. So not a recipe for blinding success at the FBI.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, that's all I got. That's all I got for today. Let's go around the horn. Joe, looking towards the end of the week, what do you think?
I think the actual Russian response is still ahead of us. I think that we have to really pay attention to not this Saturday, but next Saturday. I'm going to start beating the drum early because that is when we're having a large military parade for the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary. It's also Donald Trump's birthday, and there are also a couple thousand protests planned across the U.S. that day. So start planning early. Unfortunately, I'll be driving across the U.S. and I'll find myself in a leftist dump that day. So I will plan accordingly.
Oof.
Well, Joe, the other thing too, if I remember correctly, I heard that there's supposed to be a bunch of leftists protesting on that day.
Yeah,
that's what I just said.
So I know my point is that it's going to be. I don't know that it's going to be like one or two places. It's
going to be all over. Yeah.
Yeah, it's literally. I think the last is like over 70 different locations. Yeah.
They're all over.
Yeah, it's not going to be good. Watcher.
Yeah, I think I'll just leave everybody with a thought about attack attribution, which is that in the game of international warfare and international politics, when a war is not officially declared, quite often a nation will choose to obscure when another nation attacks them. Even if they find out who it is, they choose to find other things to blame it on, because admitting that you were attacked by another nation requires you to respond. And in the context of attacks that are semi-attributable to the U.S., attempting to kick out the Russian nuclear triad, I leave open for interpretation what might happen on U.S. soil.
Yeah. My big blindingly obvious prediction is massive Russian response. I think they'll go after Zelensky. It may be a while before they do it. So
yeah, I think that's fair.
And they may be willing to kill a lot of people in order to get Zelensky. So that will make it a fairly spectacular attack, I think. Guys, that's all I got. If chat, you guys were awesome as always today. Thank you to my two co-presenters, Watcher and Joe. Gentlemen, you guys are killing it as always. Chat, if you haven't done it already, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, even on Rumble or on YouTube. Hit the bell for notifications. Tell people that you're getting some good stuff over here at the Council of Future Conflicts. Share that link out. Comment in the bottom. I mean, do all the things, right? It's all free for the most part. So just help us out if you would. Word of mouth is the strongest form of marketing for us. Yeah, as always, stay safe.
Yep.